I don't know if there's another issue that riles up a Newfoundlander more than the Newfie versus Newfoundlander question. So let me start off by saying that this isn't actually like a don't call me a Newfie video, right? I know what the thumbnail said. That was on purpose. It's not clickbaity. It will actually sort of flesh out in this video that theme, but it's not really a don't call me a Newfie video. I'm not trying to tell you don't ever use the word Newfie. That's not what this video is. And even if I was trying to tell you, who am I? You're not going to listen to me anyway if you have a certain feel about the word to begin with. All this is trying to explain that the word is loaded for some people and it's completely unloaded for many other people. There's so many times when the word is used as innocently and as warmly and as lovingly as any word can be used. One way or the other. There isn't a right or wrong. I'm not telling you don't use the word. I'm not telling you to always use the word. Do what you're going to do. Just be aware of what the word Newfie is and whether you have a problem with it or if you have a problem with people having a problem with it, just be aware of people beyond your own nose. You know what I mean? Newfie is an absolute word of endearment for many people in most situations, particularly when you're at home in Newfoundland. But when you're in a place like Alberta or Ontario, it can be very different. And that's all I'm saying now. I call myself a Newfoundlander all the time. I don't have any problem with the word Newfoundlander in any context. The word Newfie is absolutely an endearing term in many situations and many circumstances, but it can be used as a word to keep you down if you are blessed to have never experienced one of these situations where you and your family and all the people from your homeland were put down by people who have no reason to think that they're better than you. Then I am jealous of you. I think that's fantastic. I think it's awesome. And I think a lot of people would agree with that statement. You're lucky if that's your experience. My experience is what it is. I've come to feel the way that I feel about the word, and I have no apologies to make for it. Some people think straight up Newfie is a slur. Other people think it's a slur to say the word Newfie is a slur. And I'm on neither camp. It can be the most endearing word that you can think of, but it can also be a very hurtful word. It can be used as a slur, but it's not always a slur. Sometimes it's a very beautiful way to talk to your fellow Newfoundlander. And for some of this nonsense that comes through in the comments where people say that our forefathers have laid down their lives for this word, like, give me a break. Just relax, okay? That's not true. I think you know that, and if you don't know that, maybe just take a breather, read a book, just turn off Facebook for a little while because something's not clicking for you. I'm just kind of having fun with this. I know it can be a heated topic of conversation, but I mean, I'm just trying to make light of a few things because I've learned to make a little more light of it myself, just kind of when I'm faced with a situation that used to make me really angry. I deal with it a little different now than I did in my 20s or even my 30s, right? So I'm not trying to be mean, like I'm saying. I'm just trying to have a little bit of fun with this. But I know how YouTube gets. I've been called a total jerk on YouTube in comments from people I don't know. And I can't help if you feel like that's the way that I'm coming off. But at the end of the day, this is a fairly serious topic because when people are insulted, that's not something to take totally lightly. But if talking about it in this way to explain and open up kind of how people feel about the word Newfie or the word Newf or the people with the stick up their butt saying I'm a Newfoundlander. Maybe they don't have a stick up their butt. Maybe they have a little bit of self-respect and they've gone through something at some point, right? That's all I'm trying to do here is just talk about things. It's such a strange thing where people are so heated about the topic on either side of the spectrum that it gets to a point where you can't talk about it because people will get upset if you call them a Newfie. Some people will get upset if you say, don't call me a Newfie, right? It's a mystical word with a lot of power over a population of people who were born and raised in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Oh, and don't even get me started about how Labrador is completely excluded from this because people from Labrador, while probably in many cases consider themselves to be Newfoundlanders or Newfies, I believe for the most part they don't. From my experience, and it's only my experience, I don't know, I'm not an expert on that, but Labradorians are Labradorians. Yeah, we're all part of one political entity being Newfoundland and Labrador, and we definitely have ties. The history of Labrador plays a big role in the history of Newfoundland before it was politically unified as a single entity. But I don't want to exclude or alienate anybody here, regardless of what you like to call yourself.
I've seen the argument, and I've heard people say that Newfie has historically been used like in a derogatory way to keep Newfoundlanders down, to talk about them as being like simple-minded or uneducated or whatever, right? And I have no doubt that that is in part true, because historically it has been happening. But at the same time, while that was happening, we've been using it ourselves as like a point of pride. It was not used to keep ourselves down. It's just what we call each other. So it is true that there's been historically like a derogatory link to the word, but it isn't only derogatory, right? We've been using it ourselves for the whole time that it was used kind of against us. So it's not like it's only been used historically in a mean-spirited way, right? Absolutely, it's true, but it's not only true. It's not the only reality. My own personal history with the word is like 100% positive until I moved away from home as a teenager. The word Newfie got turned back on me over a bunch of experiences that occurred, negative experiences that occurred in like some pretty formative years of my life, like my late teens, early 20s, right? So I guess after some of those, I started to become like really overprotective and super duper sensitive to the word. Just always kind of being suspicious of why someone's calling me a Newfie, regardless of if they were Newfies themselves. I kind of feel like, you know, this is where the controversy even comes from, right? How many Newfoundlanders live somewhere else, particularly in Canada? How many Newfoundlanders have been laughed at to their face because they're from Newfoundland? Not everybody, I know that, even in Alberta or Ontario, like not everybody gets laughed at because they're a Newfoundlander, but many of us have. That, oh, you're a Newfie, that's gonna wear you down when you're 20 years old trying to find your way. Newfoundland has a complex history. Newfoundlanders have a complex history, and the word Newfie has, of course, a complex history. Different people view the word very differently, and we all need to understand that, whatever side of the coin you're on. My own view of the word has like changed so much in recent years, and my complete hard line against it has gone away. But I'm no expert on the word. I'm just fascinated by how strong a reaction it garners, regardless of your view of it. So yeah, sure, I used to have a big problem with the word Newfie, because a lot of my experience with the word was in insulting situations outside of Newfoundland with people who were making a joke of my existence and your existence if you're a Newfoundlander or a Newfie. A lot of time when I heard it, it was, you know, in Alberta or in Ontario, more there in those two provinces than any other provinces that I spent significant time in. More times than not, I'd say actually the vast majority of the time, if someone was to say something about Newfies or Newfs or whatever, it was in a disparaging manner. You know, people that say, I've never heard somebody use the word Newfie in a disparaging way. If that is true, and I'm sure that for some people that is true, as I've said already a couple of times, like that is really good. That's excellent for you, and I'm not being sarcastic. I think that's pretty awesome. And for people that like just dig in their heels the way that I did about call me a Newfoundlander, not a Newfie, I mean, there's times when that can certainly be valid, but there's many times where I was overreacting. I've learned to soften up my stance on it because I'm just trying to be more open-minded in general. If you're in a situation where you hear the word Newfie and you just want to punch people, there's better ways to go about life than holding on to anger like that, because quite often when you hear the word Newfie, it's in the spirit of love. I mean, no other way to put it. It's a warm way for people from Newfoundland to greet each other. I still prefer to be called a Newfoundlander, addressed as a Newfoundlander. I prefer the word Newfoundlander over Newfie in most circumstances. But I used to have a hard line where I didn't care who was saying it. I didn't want to hear the word Newfie because a lot of the experiences that I had were what they were. But as I get older, as I sort of think about things on a broader spectrum, when I meet people who aren't themselves from Newfoundland, but they have Newfoundland lineage, they have families that have talked to them in warm ways over their whole lifetime, and they use the word Newfie the way that someone like myself from Newfoundland might use it, I can understand that now. That's okay. It's not a word that I have a problem with without exception.
Look, I guess the moral is, whatever side of the spectrum you find yourself on, just take a step back and breathe if someone says the word Newfie, regardless of how you feel about it. I know I dig my heels in a little bit myself when I'm in certain circumstances or certain situations, and I am learning how to deal with things a little better, and I'm not as emotional as I was when I was younger, for sure. But, if I'm on the mainland and I hear the word Newfie, sometimes it's nails on a chalkboard for me. But nails on a chalkboard is better than fighting words, right? I've learned to kind of relax a little bit. I guess the bottom line here is the word Newfie can be the most endearing term that a Newfoundlander or a Newfie can call you, but it can also be a very offensive slur depending on the context. Yes, both things can be true. I feel like it's an interesting topic because people are so polarized over how they feel about the word. If you are offended by the word, try to understand that other people absolutely are not offended by it. And it's okay. It's not actually a slur. It can be used as a slur. It can be used to kick down. 100%. I've experienced it, as I've said. But not everybody has experienced that, and some people use it in a way that's completely innocent and loving and warm. So just remember, it can be used multiple ways, and people's perception of the word is going to change person by person. So everybody, just relax and think about the word in the context that it's used when it's used.